Hey guys, welcome out to Revolution this morning. We're going to be looking at the Johannine comma and Jan Hardouin. And so um, I'm pretty sure that's how you would pronounce it, Jan Hardouin. And so what I'll do is I'll read a little bit about Jan first, so you get a bit of an idea of who he is and his influence, and then I'll read through my article. My article isn't long, and so um, I'll give you a bit of background. I might read it from Wikipedia. It might be a little bit more up to date. Um, I've got an article on my website, but every now and then there's a little bit more added to Wikipedia. So Jan Hardouin. So English John Hardwin. That makes it easier. So John Hardwin, and I won't go through the Latin. He was born 1646 and he died the 3rd of September 1729. So it's very important to note that he passed away. You're looking at 50 years before Eugenius Vulgaris has brought up the grammatical issues um, to do with the Comma Johanneum. If you've been following my series on that, um, you can see that Eugenius Vulgaris he made some very good points about the grammar, the Greek grammar, how there's a solecism in the critical text. If the comma isn't in the text, it creates a solecism. If it is in the text, there is no solecism. A solecism is basically a grammatical issue. And so Jan Hardouin, I'll just call him John Hardouin. He was a French classical scholar born at Quimper in Brittany. Having acquired a taste for literature in his father's bookshop, he sought and obtained admission into the order of the Jesuits around 1662 when he was 16 in Paris, where he went to study theology. He ultimately became a librarian of the Lycée Louis de Grand 1683 and died there. His first published work was um, an edition of Themistius, 1684, and included no fewer than 13 new orations. So I'm just going to just nitpick through this because I don't want to just be pronouncing a whole bunch of Latin and boring you. But he wrote prolifically um, The Natural History of Pliny. Um, Hardouin was appointed by the ecclesiastical authorities to supervise um, that in 1715, but he was accused of suppressing important documents and including apocryphal ones, and by the order of the Parliament of Paris, then in conflict with the Jesuits, the publication of the work was delayed. After his death, a collection of works of Proveria appeared in Amsterdam. So we can see, he's writing, he's involved in a few controversies, um, and yeah, constantly writing. So this guy is a Jesuit. Um, okay, so that's about all I really have to read about him, just to give you a bit of an idea, so you're not just totally blind about who this guy is. So let's go back to our main article. So John Hardouin 1646 to 1729, refers to the grammatical issues in both verse 7 and 8, several years before Eugenius Vulgaris. This was noted by John Black he lived from 1783 to 1855. Eugenius argued for the Greek reading, which contained the comma, but both Hardouin, a Jesuit, and Black were proponents of the Latin text and attacked the Greek text for being a grammatical mess. The issues pointed out do not apply to the Textus Receptus reading, but to the text with the comma omitted. Hardouin felt that a verse which retranslated into Latin becomes grammatically correct, in which he exalted the Latin over the Greek. While Black was against the comma, Hardouin defended it. Okay, so that's quite interesting. So he has in this picture here, I'll just open these in new windows so they're all ready for us. So obviously that's in Latin. I'm not going to amaze you with my Latin skills at this time. But we have a handy little translation down the bottom here. And it says, and there are three things are not said. So I'm not sure how great this Latin translation is, but it'll give us a bit of an understanding. And so it is likely the case to have written to John in Latin the spirit and the blood of the males, which, since they are written in language, it was allowed to him to express the male gender. Okay, so he's talking about the male gender. It's probably a bad translation, actually. I'm not sure where I actually got that from. Let's have a look at these pictures. Okay, so we have that in the Latin. I think I've actually copied it from an old text. Okay, so I'll just read through it. I know it's a little bit lousy. I probably should have checked it, but I didn't. But let's just read through it. Okay. Which, since they are written in the language, it was allowed to him to express the male gender, the number of which is made up, even when the female is. For if the water, which in Greek so great an apostle was to write, since they are of the neuter gender, and not to say that three but it will be understood from this observation that which is from the same time in other places, we discover that the addition of the Latin epistolae of this to be in the original, written by the very same John the Apostle, with a wonderful diligence and accuracy, but not Greek, as it now is, Latina, in so far as we read, he wrote the words of the John, the hand of his own, either indirect, he transferred to, or from at least amanuense approved. Okay, so that was a bit messy. So let's have a look at what we got written here. So this is like a footnote of the Latin that he's got here. So we find in like manner in 1 John verse 8, tres esin ho materiontes to pneuma, etc. Instead of tria esin and so on, a verse which retranslated into Latin becomes grammatically correct. Hardouin makes the following remark on the text, and so that's where he's talking in Latin there. And so this passage forms a part of a dissertation which Hardouin attempts to prove the genuineness of the verse concerning the three heavenly witnesses. So he's talking about the grammatical issues, and he's talking about the genders and how they don't match up. And so this is the argument that was raised by Eugenius Vulgaris years later. And so why is this important? Because what we're seeing here is this is not just something that came from Eugenius Vulgaris. This was something that was noted by John Hardouin. And so he died 50 years before Vulgaris. And so we're also going to look at how Erasmus, he saw these grammatical issues as well. Because many times people who are pro-critical text, or even pro, I guess, majority text, because the comma Johannine in the Greek is not in the majority, they are oftentimes pointing out that yeah, there's no grammatical issues. People like Eugenius Vulgaris don't know what they're talking about. But we see throughout history, even someone who is a Jesuit, someone who we wouldn't necessarily agree with on theology or anything like that, but this guy is saying that there is that the Latin is correct. He's talking about the grammatical issues. So even just the fact that he's pointing out grammatical issues shows that he was aware of these things. And so this is the main point that we're trying to make here. And so this is the first video on this. If I find out any more information about John Hardouin, or if I find a better translation of his Latin here, because it might have just been thrown into Google Translate for all I know. Yeah, it looks like here that section it looks like it's exactly like what's here. So it looks like a Google Translate. Um, okay, so we have two books here. I'll just quickly open them. Sorry about my croaky morning voice. Okay, so we've got these two books. Let's just have a quick look and see if there's... Okay, so they're quite lengthy. Oh yeah, so this is his own book. He might be talking about 1 John 5:7 in this book. Oh, he's talking about the Trinity. So yeah, that's worth having a look at. And then he's got this other one there. So yeah, so we find in like manner. So that's where I got that screenshot from there. Okay. And so basically that is a footnote with yeah, so he's talking about, and even in our rough, Google Translate style translation here, we can see he's talking about, spirit and blood, and so they're masculine. He's talking about the masculine gender, the number. He's talking about the feminine, and so the neuter gender. So he's talking about these grammatical issues, and so obviously that has to be brought over a little bit clearer. What I might just quickly do, which is sometimes I enjoy doing this, is just jumping in and seeing where else this appears. Okay, so it looks like it just appears in these books here. I'll just check and see if there's a translation. No, it's the same book. Same book. And last one, I'm pretty sure it's the same. I was hoping to find one with a translation. But yeah, so, okay, so we see he's bringing up gender here. Okay, well, I think that's it for this video. So I just randomly jumped on to John Hardouin, thought I'd read through this, and basically at the end of the day, this just says the Comma Johanneum, John Hardouin, who lived between 1646 and 1729, he raised the grammatical issues. So we will, as we have time, we will add more and more to this, and we'll find out exactly what John Hardouin said. But I just wanted to point out that he was pointing out grammatical issues 50 years before Eugenius Vulgaris, and so that's very important to us. It's very important to us knowing that this isn't something that's invented by Eugenius Vulgaris. And I encourage you to watch the video on Eugenius Vulgaris in my playlist there on the Comma Johanneum. Okay, so I think that's it for this video. I want to keep these videos nice and short, so they're not just long-winded things that, long-winded things that people just sit there for ages and ages and just get bored with. I want them to be just straight to the point. So the point is with this video is the grammatical issues were known before Vulgaris, and later on we're going to do another video on the Communicaneum and Erasmus, and how he pointed out the grammatical issues also. So that's going to be interesting. So okay, thanks for joining us, guys. God bless you, and we'll leave it there.